what do you need to make 1,000 horsepower in a Coyote, and what is it that you don't need. You gotta choose wisely to reach your goals. And to get out of the way, a Gen 2 or Gen 3 Coyote we make 1,000 horsepower, but reliability, you're on the limit. So something happens or your motor is not feeling it that day, you're just gonna blow it. So reliable, 1,000 horsepower and a stock bottom end Gen 2 or Gen 3 is out of the list. So what is it that you need? Well, let's start by the engine. It's really simple on these motors. You can have a stock balancer, harmonic balancer with a stock volt. You can have a stock secondary chain and primary chains, and many times and often people change the double chains and the secondary chains. But if you're not running big cams with higher lift than stock OEM, or you're not using two steps, you can get away with running the stock secondary chains like I have been doing. A couple pulls on this and this seems to work well. But if you want to change it, you can go ahead and change it, but you don't need to unless you are the track all the time and using the two steps, then you're gonna need it. I also recommend changing this. This gonna allow water to flow directly into the engine, the water pump. That's the inlet, not outlet. This is the outlet. So this is the inlet from the radiator, and that gotta be a straight, and that's because, let me show you right now. This thermostat close and opens the valve that you see in there. Now you can change this to 180 degrees and it'll open quicker, or 160 degrees and they'll open quicker to bypass water into the engine. But also just getting rid of this is junk. What you need is this port from MR. I don't know any other brand that makes them, and that will allow water in the engine at all times. And this engine don't require that much water, but they can overheat real quick. Obviously I'm running an aftermarket radiator which has a cap on the radiator, and the OEM cars has a overflow tank, and that's where the compressed hot water goes to instead of this. This gets the hot water and pulls it out into that coolant tank, but this doesn't hold any pressure. This is just a coolant tank for whatever water this spits out. It goes in here. As you can see, there's some in there. When it gets really hot, it just spits water. So instead of spitting it on the ground, it just spits it there. So also just changing that. Also, coils, you don't need to change those. Spark plugs, I'm running that 2 steps colder. To make 1,000 or more, you need the 2 steps. 3 steps is for 1,700 or more. Probably not gonna be making that. OEM alternator, OEM water pump, aftermarket intake manifold, you can go with the Gen 3 intake manifold. There's plenty of people making more than 1,000 on them. This one just looks cooler. Also, let's talk about bottom end. This one is sleeved, but getting the job done is kind of hard. So if you stay in at 1,000, you don't need the sleeves. You passing 1,200, you need them. You're gonna crack the block. Now they come out with a Predator block, which can hold way more horsepower than Gen 1, 2, and 3 without sleeving. But safely, if you want to make power safely, I suggest getting a sleeve block. This one has the mainly rods and pistons. That's a must. This right here is a Gen 3 Coyote piston and rod. You can see the high lift right there for the 12 compression. You can live on 1,000 horsepower on this, but it's at your own risk. What I recommend and what I have on that is mainly lightweight piston. Now, why did I go with the lightweight version versus the heavyweight, which is 90 grams heavier, and it doesn't seem like much, but when you put 8 rods together, 90 grams adds up and you have a couple pounds more. Now, why you don't want to have that in a rotating assembly if you're not making more than 1,500–1,600 to the wheels, which I'm not making that, obviously, because of the turbo and other things, is that the less rotating mass that you have in the engine, the quicker it's gonna spin, the faster you're gonna have response on the throttle. So I went with the lightweight version, and I've seen a lot of guys going with the heavyweight version, and they don't need it. So they just have that extra weight on the bottom end, spinning 8,000 RPM, and they're actually not using it. They're not using what that rod is meant to be for, which is 2,000 horsepower. So you're just carrying that extra weight. So aluminum pistons, and if you're not passing 1,500–1,600 to the wheels, you can go with a mildly lightweight version, and it's gonna spin way faster and quicker, and you have more response. That's what I have for bottom end. Sleeve block, forged piston rods, and also I have back here is the water and the second there. That's a water bypass, and that's a head oil bypass. So that will get water from one head and oil with 2 separate lines. MMR sells them into the other head, and that would prevent starvation from one head to another, because internally it has passage from one head to the other, so you can get water on both heads and oil. But at high RPMs, those passages don't work fast enough, so that's why MMR came out with those lines for coolant and oil. Also, injectors. I'm running the FIC 1650 now. I purchased injectors before building anything or anything like that ahead of time, and I had the Ditchworks to 2200. So when the time came to tune the car, I was told by the tuner that those injectors were giving some trouble at idle because they were too big. The nozzle is too big and they just spray too much fuel. so your computer at idle can adjust that fuel and it just have a rough idle. So they told me to go with FIC 1650, and they just plug and play, and the ditch work 2200 are not. You have to splice the connector, but I never did it thankfully, so I didn't have to cut and splice anything. And that's an expensive mistake, because both of these injectors cost 1500 for a set of injectors, so that's an expensive mistake. If you can resell it, then you did a big mistake. So don't do that. Have the right injectors, or wait until the end and talk to the tuner and see what injectors work best for your HP goals. Another thing is, you don't need to change any of these. I'm still running the VCTs, and that's so I can have good idling and the computer have all the features. So talking about the fuel system, another thing you're gonna need is sizing the right fuel pump. I have the automotive brushless 5.0 gear pump, but before that I had the eliminator, and looking at the charts, the eliminator wouldn't give me reliably above 1000 horsepower on 85 force induction. If that fails right there, I'm gonna know right away that the pump is failing. But if you have 3 or 2 pumps, one goes out, you go full throttle, unless you have a Multec or something like that, it's gonna shut off the engine because you're running out of fuel pressure, then most likely you're gonna go lean and blow your motor because you have a faulty fuel pump. But you don't know that because you know WLT all the time. Only when you step on it is gonna need that fuel. So if this one goes bad, guess what? The power is not gonna be there. You're gonna have issues. So you're gonna stop and check the car, and you can actually see what's going on. Now, another thing, if you're making that much power, now you need to work on your suspension. You need coilovers, anti-roll bar, brakes. You're gonna need all kind of braces to support the chassis and stuff like that. This model or S197, you still need to work on that. If you're mainly gonna do street stuff, then you're good to go with basic stuff. Like if you planning on going to a track, which I am, but I haven't been able to because my tracks are closing locally, so I have to go all the way to Tampa and Orlando to test the car on the track. So right now I don't have any track close by, so that's it. So that's all you need to make 1000 horsepower or more reliably on the Coyote. Build bottom end, sleep if you wanna go past 1200. Injectors, spark plugs. You're gonna get away with stock timing components. Now for transmission, I have the 680. I just had the intermediate shaft and clutches installed before putting the transmission in, and that's the most, since these transmissions are gonna start giving you problems after 800 horsepower of the wheels. So that's a must for this. I also have the Circle D torque converter to have a better response and hold the power down. So next thing is turbo. This one is a 82, 85 Precision Gen 1. This is critical because as a newbie I had the 76, 75 Precision bolt journal, and that's another expensive mistake because that turbo will not give me enough of that turbo will not meet my HP goals, since it will start giving me back pressure, so I never got to install it. So instead I just grabbed this one used, and this is a ball bearing 8285 like I said, and this will give me up to 1400 to the wheels. That's well above 1500 to the crank. So I think this setup is really reliable at 1000, 1200. The block is not cracked, got enough turbo to keep up. I'm not undersizing anything, so if you just limiting all your parts and you go out there racing every day, something's gonna give up. Either your engine, transmission, turbo. Drive shaft, I had to go with aluminum 1500 horsepower rated drive shaft so it doesn't break. And for electronics, you can go with any aftermarket computers or the control pack. I have the control pack, like I said in other videos. The control pack will give you well above 1800 horsepower to the wheels, so there's no reason to go any other route. If you maybe you want to tune your own car, so you go with aftermarket, Fuel Tech, Motec, whatever. But if you're just gonna be a weekend racer like I am, then you're good to go with the control pack. Or if you have a OEM car, it's gonna already come with a computer, so you just gotta hook up the boost controller and stuff like that. But like I said in the beginning, reliably, this is the way to go. If you want to push your stock bottom end Coyote Gen 2 and Gen 3, I know you're going to talk about Gen 1s. Let me show you the rods for the Gen 1. This right here is a piston and rod from a 2012 GT. You can see this flat piston for that 11 compression versus the other one, which is more pointy. So if you're trying to make power on a stock Gen 1, this is what you're playing with. Like, this is weak. So all you guys out there boosting your Gen 1s, you're playing with this. This is gonna go out of your block in no time. And the reason why Gen 2 and 3 goes away with running 1000 horsepower and they don't break is because they have more material. Ford figured it out that you needed more material because there's people throwing rods left and right, and you can see the material goes all the way down here. I can measure with a caliper, I already did, and you can feel it's heavier. This is the only reason why you guys out there are getting away with running 1000 horsepower with this, and this one will only hold 700. I wouldn't go past that. Like, this is what you're playing with. That's why I went with the mainly piston on rods. You gotta go after market. You're trying to chase high horsepower, like that's your goal. Big difference. And look at the top. This is why the Gen 2 and 3 are so responsive. Well, Gen 2s are like this one. There's only 11 compression, 11 and a half. This is Gen 3, which they go 12 compression. So if you're wondering why the Gen 3 is so responsive and they make more horsepower, is because of that. They sit closer to the valve, so they can be more efficient and have higher compression. The higher the compression, the more power you can get out of it. It's not ideal for boost. I went with the 10.5 compression because the motor will stay cooler with a lower compression. According to Raul, my engine builder, he told me go with the 10.5. So I go order the 10.5 and it works amazing. 12 compression, if you're running on the street, the engine may get hot quicker because of the higher cylinder pressure inside the engine. You're running, especially if you're running 93. Hopefully you're running 85, right passing 1,000. I don't think nobody's gonna tune your car 93 making more than 750, 800 horsepower, unless you want to blow or they don't know what they're doing. So you are running 85 still with that cold gasoline. The engine may get hot because of the high compressions on the cylinder. So 10.5 compression, you can go with 12, make 1,000 in Gen 3, that's fine. But reliably, this is what you're looking for, built engine, if you want to go past 1,000 horsepower. So that's it. I'll see you next time. Stick around for more videos. Maybe one day, if times allows, I can go to a track. I gotta travel all the way up to whatever track is open now, since I don't know, somebody's pushing the tracks to close down and we don't have any close by. So hopefully I can take this to a track. First time, never been to a track. Well, I went once, long time ago, quarter-mile track. It was a 1/8 of a mile, and it wasn't even road racing. So hopefully I can take this, see what time it does. I'm not even running a cage, so as you can see. So if I run a 7-second, 8-second, whatever I'm gonna run, they're probably gonna tell me to stop and leave because I don't have a cage, since I only use this car for the streets. But it'll be worth trying until I get that 8-7 second pass and they kick me out of the track. So let's see if I can get this puppy out of there and do some track times. Alright, so see you next time.